Hi everyone, and welcome to Mystic Vineyard Block 2. This gorgeous block builds off of Block 1 and is just half square triangles and squares. So let's get started. Block 2 is a lot like Block 1, just half square triangles and squares. And so remember that number 1 is what we're providing for you in the kit. We've already done this for you. So you're moving straight to number 2. So for the cutting for month number 2, I just wanted to point out that we're cutting all squares here, so you don't even have to worry about any half square triangles. And I just wanted to note that in fabric D, fabric N, and fabric O, I did mark down that I have 8 total squares, and 16 total squares for my 3-inch squares. I like to know exactly how many my total is. Now that my cutting is all done, I've sort of laid it out so that I know exactly what I'm doing. If you need to pull out your stickies and make sure that you have the color A, color B, color C, and so on and so forth, make sure that you keep these straight. In step number 3, all you're doing is drawing diagonals across all the squares that they've asked you to draw diagonals for. They will tell you specifically the number of blocks you need to draw diagonals and which block you need to draw diagonals. So I'm going to finish that and we'll be back. We have 10 different combinations of these half square triangles. So I've already laid all those out with their appropriate pairs, and now I'm getting ready to start sewing. That helps me to know that I have used the right amount of squares for making my triangles. Then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of my sewn line. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of my line. Because I have them all laid out here, I can continue to chain piece all, but I want to make sure you see that I am going to now go on the other side of my chalk line. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish all of them and go ahead and cut them on their chalk line. Now I can go through and simply cut on that chalk line and move them all over to the side. I like to go ahead and press these all open, and then we will square them all up. I need to square each one of these down to 3 inches. So I am going to use my stripology, and the wonderful thing about the stripology is that I have a diagonal line going there and a diagonal line going there. I can go ahead and line up my diagonal line here, and then I'm going to trim the 3 inches and the 3 inches here and here. The nice thing about the stripology is that I can definitely tell right now that all of my block is inside or is outside of my squaring area. And now what I do is simply turn this block over, and now I can use this diagonal line to follow that diagonal line and my horizontal lines here and here so that I can get a perfect square. And I'm going to do that with all of them. I enjoy squaring so much with this ruler that I've gone a little crazy with it, and squaring is no longer my enemy. There is no reason not to square your blocks now. You can see how I am actually cutting off about 1/8 inch off each side. If I keep that 1/8 inch on my block, it's really going to skew your block up. And so you really definitely want to square your blocks, whether you use this method or another method. The key to squaring your blocks is that diagonal line, making sure your diagonal line is lined up with that diagonal line right there. And I'm just going to keep going with those, but let me show you how to use a regular squaring ruler. So this is a regular squaring ruler. Here you can see I've marked my diagonal line with that blue tape. So you can see how that diagonal line is going across my square. And so with this one, my 3 inches is right here and right here, so I want to keep in there. And I want to line up that diagonal line right there. And I can see right here that I've got a little bit of fabric outside each of the 3-inch. And I square like that. And then I can turn it over, place this squaring ruler right back on it, and do the other 2 sides. Even though I'm using a creative grid, sometimes they do sort of slip. I have found that that happens less with my stripology. So now I've laid the whole block out. I have 7 more blocks that I need to do. So I'm going to place them over to the side in a nice pile the same way. Everybody gets their own place over here on the side. That way, when I'm done with this block, I can move all those 1 blocks over. That helps me to keep all 8 straight. If it was just 4, I would probably pile them right on top of each other and go from there. I'm super scared I'm going to mix up some of these half triangles, so I'm going to keep the other set over here. I am going to start by putting the first row of 2s together, and then I will go over to the second column, and that way I can chain piece. Because I have the other set over to the side, I'm not as scared of mixing up blocks. Now that I've gotten all my 2s done in both rows, I go ahead and lay it all out again just to double check that I can chain piece again and everything's in the right order. Now I'm going to do the 4s together. Now that I have the 4s done, I want to make sure that I'm going to nest my seams. So I go ahead and turn it over, and then I bring in my iron, and for one line I go one way, and then I'll go the other way for the next line. Now I can turn them all back over again. And I have it all backwards, so I'm going to go like that. I'm going to bring in my pattern, double check, and then I can bring my pieces together and everyone nests perfectly. Now that I have the block done, I have pressed on the back just a little bit. I'm going to press more later with some good steam, and then I'm going to do all the other 7 blocks. I want to see how your blocks turned out. My block is wonderful. I can't wait to put them together with all the other blocks. We'll see you in a few weeks for block 3. Bye everyone.